Okay, so the blood vessels start with arteries. Arteries, remember, we've already gone over this, but arteries carry blood away from the heart. Arterials are smaller arteries. They receive blood from the arteries. So these are going to carry blood from the arteries to the capillaries. Capillaries is where we have exchange of material between blood and the tissues of the body. So gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged. Nutrients come in and waste products go back into the blood. Venules take blood from capillaries and send it to the veins, and veins carry blood towards the heart. Okay, specifics of arteries. Arteries have strong, thick walls. They have to have strong, thick walls because they're carrying blood that's under high pressure. So the blood passing through them is under high pressure because it's being pumped out of the ventricles of the heart. They have an inner endothelial layer. Okay, a middle smooth muscle layer. And that smooth muscle layer also has elastic tissue in it because the elastic tissue will allow the artery to expand and contract. And the outer layer is connective tissue. Arterials have a thinner wall than the artery. Thinner wall than the artery. The job of arterials is really just to control the blood flow into the capillaries. So there's still some smooth muscle, just less than the artery. And then a smaller amount of connective tissue. And arterials do have that endothelial lining. All right, veins have a thinner wall than the artery because they have less smooth muscle. A lot less smooth muscle. They don't need as much smooth muscle because they're not carrying blood that's under high pressure. Some veins have valves, and those valves help to prevent backflow. Venules are small veins. They're much thinner than arterioles. A lot less smooth muscle and elastic tissue than an arterial. Okay, but all four of these still have that endothelial lining that's consistent. Here's the walls of an artery or vein. Notice that, so this is the artery over here, and this is the vein. Notice this thick layer of smooth muscle in that artery and how thin it is in the vein. Okay. There's an arterial. And the arterials still have, well, even the smallest arterial, I should say, like these ones, still have these few smooth muscle fibers. So there's still some smooth muscle fibers in with these smallest arterials. But what you're not seeing here is that the outer connective tissue layer. So you see the endothelial lining, which is this, and you've got this smooth muscle. So these arterials still have some smooth muscle, just not as much. And then capillaries have no smooth muscle. They only have the endothelial lining. So the capillaries have no smooth muscle, just that endothelial lining. A metarterial connects a arterial directly with the venule. So this is the metarterial here. And that allows blood to bypass the capillary bed. So if you have blood coming in at a very high pressure, and you need to divert some of that pressure away from the capillary bed, the metarterial will take some of it. And it's just allows the blood to enter the capillary bed under a very low pressure. Okay, capillaries. These are the smallest diameter blood vessels. And really, the capillary is just the endothelial lining extended from the arterial. Okay, so it's only endothelial. It's one layer thick, semi-permeable. It allows material to leave the capillary and enter the capillary. Okay, so this is where that exchange between the tissues of the body out here and the capillary happen. And that's why it's one layer thick, because remember, those simple squamous cells will allow material to diffuse in and out. This just shows the capillary network, and the purpose of this picture, you have the arterial here, and you have the venule here. The purpose of the picture is to show that this exchange happens over a very wide distance. It's not just one or two capillaries in there. It's many capillaries in a capillary bed. And this is it right here. This line is an example of one of those metarterials. Okay, regulation of blood flow to the capillary bed. We have these precapillary sphincters, and these precapillary sphincters can shut off blood flow to parts of the capillary bed. And this is in response to whatever the tissue that the capillary bed is working with needs. So if the blood flow gets shut off here, the tissue may go low on oxygen, and when it gets low on oxygen, these precapillary sphincters will relax and allow more blood flow to flow through there. Or if it's low on nutrients, more blood flow can go through there. Okay, this is a pretty busy slide, but for the moment, just ignore the numbers and just ignore the osmotic pressure and hydrostatic pressure. And take this into consideration, that material moves out of the capillaries and into the tissue because there's a lower pressure in the tissue. Okay? And then materials move out of the tissues and into the capillaries because there's a lower pressure in the capillaries. The osmotic pressure and the hydrostatic pressure offset each other, okay, or they affect each other. So it's not just that if you have a much larger osmotic pressure here and a lower one in the tissues, that material is definitely going to move in, because the hydrostatic pressure also affects it. Okay, so these two may have very similar osmotic pressures, but the hydrostatic pressure in the capillary will overcome that. So, big picture, do not memorize numbers. We don't care about the numbers. What we care about is understanding that material in the capillary on the arterial side is under a higher pressure to move into the tissues. And on the venule side of the capillary, there's more pressure to move material into the capillaries. All right, so this is where we talk about the valves. So because material passing through the veins are under a very low pressure, the heart, the blood pressure doesn't really force the material through as much. So as blood flows up, especially think of in your legs or your arms, blood flows up, then it will settle back down here, and that will cause these valves to close. And this just keeps the blood from being pulled back down by gravity as it makes its way back to the heart.